know through his son with Samaritans Purse, we kind of work with them. So does that impact anything with our partnership with Samaritans Purse?
Brian, that you talk about a loaded question. And Samaritan's Purse. Thank you. It's Brian Money, one of our wonderful, hardworking deacons. Billy Graham. We actually have three questions. Billy Graham. Does Billy Graham speak for God? He has for most of his life. But Billy Graham is getting very elderly. And I think he's right now the age of my father, just before my dad died. And it was very sweet to sit with my dad. And I have 5 sons. I hope one of them takes up this challenge. And I used to sit with my dad, and near the end, he used to say things he did not mean. And he didn't mean to say. I don't know whether his mind was moving slower than his mouth or faster than his mouth, or whether both were mixed up. But he would say something, and a lot of times he was up at Camp Barakel, where he loved to be. That's where he always wanted to be. And he would say it, and I would sit right next to him, and I would smile, and I'd say what my dad meant to say was. And he'd look at me for a while curiously, and he said, well, that is what I said. I said, no, that is not what you said, Daddy. Not at all. He said, well, that is what I meant to say. So I will tell you what Billy Graham meant to say, but what he did say is, I didn't hear him say it, but it's been reported in the news that he said that Mormonism is Christianity, and what he said is Mormonism is not a cult. So the news media is proclaiming that. Now, this is not the first time Billy Graham has said something that his whole life he has preached opposite and believed. And so I attribute this to the same thing that happened to Donald Gray Barnhouse, the famous pastor of 10th Presbyterian. Barnhouse, at the end of his life, Barnhouse is a renowned, if you know anything about theology, a renowned Reformed theologian and pastor for decades. Both Billy Graham and Barnhouse, at the end of their lives, started saying things that their whole life they had defended the Scriptures, and at the end of their lives they started saying things that were totally contrary to what they had spent 50 years teaching. And so with Barnhouse, they found out that he had a growing tumor that was squashing a part of his brain and making him basically struggle. With Billy Graham, he's just dying of Parkinson's. But thankfully, his son, Franklin, came right out, as he always does. In fact, if you ever want to see something curious, go to the Samaritans Purse website and look around at some of the pictures, and you'll see a picture of Franklin Graham sitting at his desk. He rarely sits there. He's always off in, Zambezia somewhere on the front lines ministering and sharing the gospel. But if you ever see him sitting at his desk, in the one, he's got that huge smile, the face of Christianity, beautifully done. But if you look right behind him, on the credenza behind his desk, because he's sitting at his desk and behind him is this credenza, all you can see are commentaries. He has an entire set of John MacArthur's commentaries behind his desk, and which shows that he is a very much student of the Word. So Franklin Graham came right out, and you can read this. He posted on his website, and the first thing he does is he differentiates between voting for a Mormon and voting for someone who is an abortionist and a pro-sodomite, and a lot of other things. And he says the choices at our election are between two evils. And so one is more bad and one is less bad. But what he clarifies is that one is not a Christian. So, see, Franklin kind of did what I did sitting next to my dad. He doesn't say, oh, what's wrong with you? He just goes, what he meant to say is that Mormonism, for 3 reasons, is not Christianity. They serve a different God, they have a different Christ, and they have a salvation by works. That's Mormonism. Their God is a Unitarian God who is actually not even biblical. He's pagan, And Mormonism is that you can be a god too and have your own planet and have celestial sex until you can't have it anymore and repopulate the planet. I mean, it's just the most bizarre religion in the world. I don't know, other than they're pretty ads. I don't know why anybody would want to be a Mormon that knows anything about Christianity. Their Christ is Satan's brother. They're both created beings, and to Mormonism, Lucifer and Jesus Christ are brothers. So, I mean, there's nothing Christian about Mormonism. It's more an Eastern religion and more closer on occultic religions. It's almost like a Star Wars religion. But, and I'm not saying anything about our Mormon presidential candidate. And what Franklin said is clear. When you have two bads to choose between, choose the less bad over the more bad. And that's, I mean, he clarified his dad.